Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of the Tony O'Hagan Politics Podcast. And it's all kicking off, ladies and gentlemen, in the House of Commons. Yes, the skin and hair flying everywhere. Well, not quite. But what's actually happened is 7 Labour MPs have been suspended by the Labour Party for voting against the government on an opposition motion. Okay, let me quickly explain what's gone on. So, a couple of weeks ago, 4th of July, we had the general election in the UK, and the Labour Party won that election, and there are 650 seats within the House of Commons. So to get a majority, you have to have 326 Labour MPs. They've actually got about 420 odd Labour MPs, and basically the majority over all the other parties is about 174. So generally, if the Labour Party want to get something through, it will get through, because they've got such a big majority. Okay, so last week we had the King's speech, and it's so named because it was King Charles came to Parliament to read the speech. And it is the programme of government of bills and legislation that the governing party is going to put before the House of Commons over the next 12 to 18 months. So tonight, they've been debating it for the past 5 days, and tonight they're going to be voting where they're going to agree to the King's speech. So what the opposition parties can do, they can add amendments to certain clauses that possibly allow them to show their dissatisfaction with things. So, for instance, the Conservative Party, they put in an amendment to say that they were disappointed that the government, the Labour Party, had not committed to 2.5% of gross domestic product being spent on defence. And when that amendment's then voted on, and of course the Labour Party with their huge majority, they voted against that motion, so that didn't survive. So what happened was the Scottish National Party, they put forward a motion to say they were disappointed that there should be the removal of the 2-child benefit cap. Okay, now this is slightly complicated, but I'll try and make it as simple as possible. There is a benefit that is given to families to help bring up children, but there is a cap. You only get the benefit for the first child and the second child. If you have subsequent children, you don't get any extra money. And this is quite controversial because apparently there are a lot of children who are in poverty because there's not the extra money, because families are struggling. And it's felt that if that cap was removed, it would then lift so many children out of poverty. The only problem with it, of course, is that it costs quite a lot of money to do that. And the government, who are trying to stick to very strict monetary rules, they are saying, we'd like to do it, we just can't afford it at the moment. So the SNP, the Scottish National Party, that is something they would like to see the cap removed. So they knew that there were some Labour MPs who actually would also like to see that cap removed. So in some ways, it was trying to entice some of those Labour MPs to vote against their own party. And 7 of those MPs actually voted with the SNP amendment. It didn't pass. The Labour Party, of course, threw it out with their huge majority. But in effect, there were 7 rebels. And apparently, within a couple of minutes of them rebelling, they were all issued with a letter to say they were suspended from the party for 6 months. But interestingly enough, the chief whip of the Labour Party, the person who's in charge of MP's discipline, he's saying, we will monitor your voting over the next 6 months, and you must vote with the Labour Party. So if the Labour Party wants something, you've got to vote with it. If the Labour Party are voting against something, you've got to vote with the Labour Party. And you'll only have the whip returned to you. It's called the whip. I'll explain that in another video. Return to you if your voting performance is in line with how we'd like it to be. So I believe it's interesting because it happened pretty much straight away, and there was talk that there were going to be more people rebelling, more MPs were going to vote with this particular motion, but that then they heard, oh, there's actually going to be suspensions. So perhaps some of the newer MPs were frightened away from that. But it's all kicked off basically. So I'll tell you who the MPs that actually voted with the SNP. They were Richard Bergen. They're all left-wing MPs, by the way, so they tend to be, a bit more radical, you might say. Ian Byrne, Rebecca Long-Bailey, who used to be when Labour were in opposition. She was in the shadow cabinet when Jeremy Corbyn was in charge. Imran Hussain, Afsana Begum, and Zara Sultana. Now, it doesn't surprise me about Zara because she was actually saying she's an MP Coventry, which isn't too far away from me, and she was saying on the local TV at the weekend that, she very much wanted to see an end to this cap, basically. But, so yeah, it's interesting because obviously it's like Keir Starmer, it's his first chance to sort of say, oi, I'm not having this. Because don't forget, you could say, well, it got through anyway, why are you worrying about it? But if they don't do something, then when you've got a very big majority, people can start saying, well, all right, then actually, I know you're not going to lose. The Labour Party isn't going to lose the vote, but I want to sort of I want to show my own independence. But it can be slightly embarrassing for the Labour Party or the government, basically, if their own MPs aren't in sync with them, and particularly so early, you could say, in a parliamentary period. So that's the big excitement that happened tonight. I hope I've explained it as best I can. It's it's a bit tricky, but as I say, it was really the SNP, bit naughty of them in one way, and obviously this is the whole point. The whole point of the opposition parties is to try and sometimes, make it difficult for the government, cause them a bit of mischief. But as I say, Keir and the Chief Whip have come down like a ton of bricks on them, and the 7 MPs have been suspended. Now, they have said, just a second, there were other people who abstained, but that's been explained away that people had COVID and things like that. So, okay, that's happened. And I bet you now, okay, we're sort of, between me and you, between the gateposts, I'll tell you now, within 6 months, before that 6 months happens, the Labour Party will have worked it to their advantage to actually remove that cap. Okay, so they're not saying they're going to do it now, but it would not surprise me when the Chancellor of the Exchequer, that's like the Finance Minister, the person who's in charge of the purse strings, when she stands up and delivers her first budget, which is later this year, probably November time, it would not surprise me if one of the things she announces is the removal of that benefit cap. So I won't say you heard it here first, but maybe you did. Anyway, if you're confused, that's politics for you. Sometimes it's confusing, but hopefully you've got a bit of an understanding or a better understanding now. But it's like that first, whoa, hey, blooming heck, we've only been back 2 weeks and people are rebelling already. Right, you take care, everybody. Have a lovely evening. Oh, the lights went off then, and I shall no doubt speak to you very soon. All the best. Bye.